Hello students, we are discussing about watershed management and its objective, principles, aim, and we are in the last video we have discussed about its measures, how we can treat it, and how we can prevent it from different sources. So we are discussing the conservation measures of soil and water. So permanent treatments, semi-permanent treatment and temporary treatments are the three categories in which the nature and the hydraulic barrier mean all the natural resources are categorized, and these conservation measures are divided. So we have, I think, discussed about the permanent treatments, and you have go through, I know you have gone through this permanent measures. So today we will discuss about the semi permanent measures, which is the second category of the conservative measures. So let us discuss about it. So, what is semi-permanent measures? If we talk about this, here also specific field sizes are there, and if we talk about the field sizes, they are large, bundled area, and they are adopted to minimize the velocity of overland flow. Why it is large? Because to minimize the velocity of overland flow, they have adopted a large conventional bundled area. Okay, and these measures may last for 2 to 5 years. They it may last for 2 to 5 years. So these are the four things which we made in semi-permanent measures. First one is the small section, key line burns. What is it? What we have to cover in this? We have to see that whatever the thing we have created across the slopes is half of the vertical burn spacing, which needs to be renovated at an interval of 2 to 3 years. We have to renovate it after an interval of 2 to 3 years. So it should be in a note. It should be like very compulsory to get renovated in an interval of 2 to 3 years. Now the second thing which we have to keep in mind is strip labeling. What is it? It is a labeling of about 4 to 5 meter strips of land above the bund across the major land slope, which helps in reducing the velocity of surface flow. Okay, why we are labeling it? Because it helps in reducing the velocity of surface flow, right? And strip labeling, it can be done by running blade harrow at an interval of 2 to 4 years. So these are the things we always keep in mind, right? Now the third thing, live bed. Well, one or two live bed of 2 to 3 meter wide width on contour or on grade also serve the purpose. The vegetation on the beds may be annual or perennial or both. Fourth one is the vegetative or live barriers. One or two barriers of close growing grasses or legumes across the bund and at mid length of slope can filter the run of water or slow down over land flow. Kush grass is widely recommended as vegetative barrier. If you want to create a barrier, vegetative barrier अगर आपको लगाना है, if you want to create, then kush grass is the mainly it is used. Now talk about the third measures, temporary measures which you have to take in. Software treatments, we can also say. These are simple treatments for in situ moisture conservation and needs to be remade or renovated every year. We have to renovate it every year, as we have seen that in some of the steps of permanent and semi-permanent measures, the things to be renovated every 2 or 3 years. But in software treatments, we have to renovate every year. Simple practices like contour farming, compartmental bunding, broad bed and furrows, dead furrows, tillage and mulching, these all have gained wide acceptance in the recent past. These all are the techniques, these all are the practices which are getting benefited, mean the farmers getting benefited by doing these type of techniques or practices, right? Now, what are the crop management things we have to do? Location specific package of practices for dry land crops have been developed by dry land research centers and state agriculture universities for all the crops and cropping system, which include what they have included in this. They have selected the crops and cropping system to suit length of growing season, mean the season, the crop selection and the cropping system uh, is to be analyzed. Second, optimum sowing time. There is an optimum time of sowing. This is to be keep in mind. Third one is the fertilizer schedules and balanced use of plant nutrients for crop and cropping system. Fertilizers which we are using and the nutrients which we are giving to the plants, it should be also analyzed very carefully. Weed management and package of practices for aberrant weather, whether it may be like weather you can't assume that what the weather condition will be, so it should be like a very managed way. You have to keep in mind everything. Package of practices for aberrant, if there is not a good weather for that particular crop, so it should be managed. And contingent cropping, so this we have discussed. So these are all the things which we have to think while managing the crop. Now, land use classification, land capability classification. These are all the classes of like land, how we can classify it as a land capacity as a specific capacity, and we can group it into a specific way, and we have categorized it like according to the capability for intensive use and treatment. The intensity of using and treating that particular crop, on the basis of that only we have classified the land. So land capacity classification system developed by USDA is useful for agriculture. 8 land capability classes are recognized and designated by Roman numericals from 1 to 8. Mean 8 land capability classification are classified and they are denoted by Roman. So Roman numericals indicate increasing limitation and fewer choices for practical field crop use. So now 1 to 4th, mean if we talk about 1 to 4 class, so they are suitable for arable crop production. If we talk about land capability classes from 1 to 4, they are suitable for arable crop production. If we talk about the remaining 5th to 8th classes of land capability, they are suitable for alternate land use system, right? So these are all the classes they have described, and this is a flow, there is a diagram of how these are categorized. This is a class 1 land, class 2, class 3. Mean each of the classes you can see by a different color, and you can outline each and every class through this diagram. Now talking about the principle of integrated watershed management, right? This is also the topic which is included in your syllabus. So these are 6 principles of integrated watershed management. One is the provision of an adequate amount of drinking water. Okay, maintenance of the quality of drinking water. One is if there is a adequate amount of drinking water, there should be an provision, right? And the second is maintaining the quality of drinking water. अगर हम पानी पी रहे हैं तो drinking water की quality को maintain करना भी it's very important. Second and third one is the participation of local community. Participation of local community, it's also a principle of integrated watershed management. Fourth one is harmonizing economic development with environmental requirements. Economic development is it's related with the environmental requirements. So this is the fourth principle: increasing of productivity of resource use in sustainable manner. If we are increasing the productivity in resource use, right, we are using natural resources for productivity, so it should be in a sustainable manner. We should keep in mind that we are using our natural resources, so it should be like in a very proper way. Stabilizing and protection of natural resources, it should be protected, and there should be a stabilization process, and protection measures should be taken while using our natural resources. So these are the common principles of integrated watershed management. Now, what are the problems and constraints we are facing while making in watershed management? So these are some of the problems we are facing in India, right? These are the problem we are facing in India, in our country, while managing it. So one is the land degradation in rain-fed areas due to soil erosion, as it's very common in India. Soil erosion problem is very common. In 1990, there is an example given. The 1990s was almost double than that of soil erosion in the 1980s. जो 1980s का अगर हम हिस्ट्री चेक करें और 1990s में जो सॉइल इरोजन का एस्टिमेशन था, इट वाज जस्ट डबल ऑफ 1980s. So it's a major problem of land. So rainfall uncertainty and poor economic condition act as a major constraint and thus prevents the farmers in rain-fed areas from making investments. I mean, it's a very tough to think about this management system, because this is the major problem of for farmers, and if there is a soil erosion and land degradation, so it will be very loss, it will be a big loss for the farmers. So it's very risky to make investment in this management. So second is equitable benefit sharing of watershed management within the farming communities as well as within the different local locations of watershed is a huge problem. So now benefit sharing, equitable benefit sharing, if we talk about, and within the farming communities, it's a different location of watershed, ह्यूज प्रॉब्लम हो जाता है. अगर हम डिफरेंट लोकेशंस की बात करें वाटरशेड की, तो अगर बेनिफिट शेयरिंग की बात करें तो अलग अलग कम्युनिटीज़ में अगर किसी को बेनिफिट हुआ है, किसी को नहीं हुआ है, तो ये भी एक मेजर प्रॉब्लम आ जाती है फार्मर्स के बीच में. जनरली वुमेन मार्जिनल फार्मर्स एंड लैंडलेस laborers gain very little or nothing at all from the watershed management activities, as labor, women's which are also doing very hard in the watershed management, but they are getting very less in that. So it's like partiality, because everybody is giving their best and they are working hard and they are getting nothing. So it's mentioned that several case studies in water scarcity states of Gujarat and MP in India have showed that overdevelopment of water harvesting structures in the upstream portion of watershed has significantly reduced watersheds, has reduced the inflows into the downstream reservoirs. And जिसकी वजह से, on the other hand, it is also noticed that building of large reservoirs resulted in the submergence and hardship in the upstream part and benefits for people in the downstream part of the same watershed or the neighboring watershed, generally having an urban or an industrial area. So for urban areas, it's like urban areas, it's very beneficial for urban areas, but it's not good for the rural areas because they are not getting that much as they are giving. So third point is, if there is a shortage of water in general, in drinking water, if we talk about, then in summer it has observed that many of the watershed result in recurrent drought. So drought is also a major problem in India. Now we talk about domestic livestock water fodder ecosystem, and all these problems, and overgrazing is also a major problem facing by the farmers in India. Problems exist or new problems crop up due to improper understanding of the interaction between biophysical and socio-economic processes in watershed management. Biophysical and socio-economic processes which are in watershed management, and if there is not there is an improper understanding, there's not understanding between the workers doing job there, so it's a major problem. It's also an problem of watershed management. And if there is a conflict between various government ministries such as those related to agriculture, rural development, poverty, forest, biodiversity, conflict between government bureaucracy and elected representative to managing things in watershed. So it's if conflicts are also one of the problem in India for managing the watershed. Now the next point is meaningful impact assessment studies on watershed program, lack of baseline data for monitoring and comparison of the current condition. The whole exercise is undertaken without properly estimating the water supply scenarios under drought, normal, surplus. So it's hard to understand, making understand for the people who are unable to understand. So what is the problem they are facing while at the time of drought and other condition. So it should be like in a very proper way. They have to be get set in mind that they have to manage each and everything for any of the devastating like drought and landslide, any of the natural calamity. They should be prepared for that. So this is also the major problem. Now the third problem, not last problem. Large areas inhabited with tribal population lack facilities to harvest water and to stabilize their food crop due to reduced forest yield, deterioration in land quality, which leads to sustained misery, socio-political unrest and insurgency among the tribal population. Now the last one is the tribal population problem. And what they face like lack of tribal agriculture policies and deterioration in land quality, forest yield, reduced production, fodder production is very less. So these are all related to tribal population. So I think about 7 to 8 major problems are there which India is facing, and I think all over the globe the farmers are facing in the management of watershed. So that's all for today's videos, and we have completed this unit of watershed management. If you have any of the problem regarding any of the topic of watershed, you can ask me freely on WhatsApp as well as on Google. Thank you, students.